And we're now streaming live. I'll bring everyone in just a second. And I'm just opening the waiting room now. Everyone's coming in.
I'm talking while I'm on mute. Hey, Sue. Hey, Claire.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, welcome. I was just typing it out to you. I'm so excited.
Oh, good.
Thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
I'm going to run and get some coffee, and I'll be right back.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I didn't know if we were allowed to talk or not. I don't know what the difference is between a webinar and a meeting.
I know we do webinars, but I make them interactive. I can't not, you know.
Yay.
So you can feel free to turn on your cameras too if you want. There will be, not sure how many people, hey, probably 10, 15, something like that here. So good to see you, Sue. It's been a while.
I know, it's been too long. Oh, and there's Stevie Chops. Hello,
Hi, Sue. I'm seeing Laurie every day almost.
I know, it's been great.
You lucky.
Is this covering stuff we've just covered, Laurie?
That is very lucky.
It's related. I think we'll take a different take. But if it feels like it's the same thing, I won't be offended if you drop off.
No, it's fine. There's new people as well. So, and Sue's here as well. So, yeah.
You can't abandon Sue. Hey there. Hi, Lorna.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. This is my first event with you guys, so I'm really pleased to be here.
Great.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah, welcome. And Claire, you got your coffee?
Yes, I did. And my notebook.
And your notebook.
We're all good.
Okay, we're all good.
And all.
Good. It's still a couple minutes till we are streaming live on YouTube and we're being recorded, but don't worry, we're not going to be broadcasting this part far into the future. Just wanted to say hi to people and welcome folks as they come in. There's still a couple minutes till the top of the hour.
Okay.
So Lorna, where are you calling from?
Harrogate, North Yorkshire.
Nice.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in Croydon.
You're in Croydon. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely tipping it down up here. Usual North Yorkshire. Yeah, from the north weather, but there we are.
Yeah.
Kids gone back to school.
Yes. I've heard such mixed thoughts and feelings from parents about their kids going back to school. So many missing their kids this week.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Ours only went back, one yesterday, one today. They've both got sad faces now, but you know, it's just they're going to have to build a bit of stamina back up, aren't they?
Yeah. So hello to others. Hi, Jane. Good to see you.
Hi. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. It's nice to be here.
Thanks. Good. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here. We're going to have some fun time talking about belonging today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Suzanne, and how are you, Suzanne? How are you doing?
Good. I'm sitting in Vancouver, just traveled back from Germany. So I have to do the 3-day mandatory stay in a hotel before I can travel on to Whitehorse.
I see.
And
okay. Yeah.
what better time to attend a webinar?
Why not? Yes. Yeah, why not? Good. Carol Conway, hello.
Hi,
Good to see you.
nice to see you too. Been a long time.
It's been a long time. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And Norbert and Lynn and Roz and Barbara and Sherry, hello. Good to see you. And who have I missed? I don't have enough room on my screen here. So it's right at 4 o'clock UK time. And there's Mary Beth. And Carrie, I think that's how you say your name. Good to see you again. And Lucy, nice, welcome back.
Hello.
Hello, hello. So let's get started. It's right top of the hour. I'd like to get us going. Just to let you all know, we are streaming on YouTube and this is being recorded, just so you know. I think it's responsible to tell you about that. And over in the background here, we've got Gwen, who will show up as Gwen, technical host, as a participant. If you need anything technical, do check in with Gwen. She's also going to be curating questions and highlighting them for me. So feel free at any time to put comments or questions in the chat box, and she's going to make sure that I see things that I need to respond to. And I'd love it for now if in the chat box you would put where you're calling from, just so everyone can kind of get a feel for who's here and where you're from. So we've got some people around the UK, but also Europe and in the US. And hey, Sheila, I see you.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Good to see you again. And Silke. And Bellingham, what a lovely place. USA, Egham. Sunny in Vancouver, that's great. Denver, it's so nice to have such a collection. Great. Maggie, good to see you. So here we are. Welcome everyone. For some of you, it's the first coming to one of my webinars. This is Neuroscience Made Simple, and today we're talking about wired to belong. We always use some kind of neuroscience theme. I just want to make it clear that this is not a neuroscience lesson. I'm not trying to be a neuroscientist and teach you about lots and lots of neuroscience. I like to just take one simple concept and apply it to personal development. That's really my aim, is for all of us to explore ourselves and others. Most of the people in my community are coaches, team coaches, individual coaches, or leaders, or L&D, learning and development people. So most of us, or I dare say all of us, are interested in the human side of things. And so that's our exploration. Make sense? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Yeah. I like to keep these as interactive as possible because I think it's more interesting for you, and I think you learn more and feel more and experience more. So feel free to stay on video and even keep your mute buttons off unless there's background noise. That'd be great. And then feel free to pipe in at different times. Write questions in the chat box or throw them out verbally. I might say, let's wait for that. But having something interactive would be great. So here's what to expect from this webinar. We are going to be talking about the impact of belonging. Now, I talk a lot about I have a Be Safe and Certain model where belonging is part of it. And we talk a lot about the impact of the sort of model as a whole, or just one part of it. But I thought, let's just really expand in on belonging today and investigate what happens to us because we have this innate need to belong. There's some good things that happen and some not so good things.
So rather than saying, okay, I'm not going to do exercise, I'm not going to go to bed early. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm sorry it was a little bit more difficult than I originally thought. I think I wrote in my email, here's an interesting article.
I don't know where this voice is coming from. Can anybody tell where that voice is coming from?
Yeah, this is to challenge you.
It sounds like a coaching voice.
So would you like to try and continue with it for next week?
There we go. I found who it was and muted. It's about belonging. It's about being with people in all states. So we're going to hone in on belonging and really look at how does that drive us in great ways and not great ways. And what I mean by great is in good ways, and not to judge anything, but there are ways that we create relationship because of this, and belonging makes us feel good. And there are ways that it gets in our way. It stops us from doing things that we need to be doing or want to be doing. And that's what we'll be investigating. I'll be asking some introspective questions at some point so you can look for yourself. How does belonging, your need for belonging, impact you? And go to, positive or negative ways. And then we'll be having an interactive activity where you get together in small groups with each other and have a conversation. And then I'll be telling you about Rewired to Relate, which is one of our, we could call it our flagship program. It's the first module of the longer Rewired to Lead program, but it is a personal development module that I encourage everyone to take because it goes deep into what's going on and what drives you and how do you relate to people and what triggers you and normalizing that and making plans for how to do things differently and learning more about your reason brain and how to create more resilience. But I'll talk more about it at the end. Let's talk about belonging. So belonging, I'm sure you've all heard this, know this, have heard it many times. We have a need for belonging. You've felt it. You've felt it in your not wanting to be rejected or feeling left out at some time or feeling good when you're with others. It is a built-in need. And it feels good when we belong. We feel safe and secure, warm and fuzzy. I wrote on this. Any other words that you would say when you feel like you belong? Sure, you feel like you belong, but what else comes with that? Warm and fuzzy or?
Willing to be vulnerable.
Willing to be vulnerable. That's great. If you feel like you belong, you'll feel safe enough and willing to be vulnerable. Thanks, Maribel.
I'm trying to find the opposite of inadequate. I can't find a word.
The opposite of inadequate.
Yeah.
Feeling adequate, feeling safe.
Feeling valued, perhaps.
Feeling valued. Yeah. Nice. So when we don't have belonging, you felt left out or you just weren't included or you're just not a part of that group over there or somebody left you. What happens? What do you feel? Either chat box, I am paying attention to the chat box. What do you feel when you don't belong? I've heard words like bereft before and
very proud of you. Oh, you're on something. Sorry.
I think that was another background noise. It's a kind of pain. Yes, a longing, shattered, excluded, incompetent, insecure. Yeah, lonely, stressed, sad, insecure. With some of the feelings of not belonging, there is a pain associated with it. And there are many times that the pain network in our brain lights up, the pain center in the brain. It isn't located to a physical pain, but it does light up, meaning, technically there's blood flow there. And when the neuroscientists look at it, it's like, okay, there's something going on with pain. So it's not just coincidence that we've used this word that it hurts. Social pain hurts and it doesn't heal as quickly as physical pain. Just FYI. So let's talk a little bit about the origins of belonging. Where does it come from? Where do all these things come from that get built in? I'm sure you've probably heard this story before, but our ancestors, our brain was evolved and developed while our ancestors were living on the savannah. They probably sat around fires like this in this picture quite a bit. And there was definitely an evolution towards belonging.
That I use is try to keep my eyes above the mid.
Sorry, I keep muting the background. If you're muted by us, just know that there was background noise. Fine to have mute buttons off. So imagine you're sitting around a campfire or you're in a collection of people, you're with your tribe, and there's things out there that could kill you. And you know that by being with your tribe, sitting by the fire or not by the fire, hunting in packs, being together in a village, you are safer there than you would be if you're out wandering alone. Clear, right? So a lot of things happen when we're out wandering alone. We might be eaten by something, attacked by someone from a neighboring tribe, a rival tribe. We might fall and break a bone and not have a way to get back. All kinds of things that could happen to us. And if we're out wandering alone and we can't come back to the tribe, our DNA is basically removed from that gene pool. Very simple like that. So wandering genes didn't always come back into the gene pool. And so it goes. It's just a little bit of how evolution works. And so these needs get built into us and reinforced generation after generation after thousands of generations. And so here we are with having these now instincts, if you want to call them that, built in to our DNA, built into our brain. It's just a natural instinct. We must belong. Any thoughts about that? Anybody has?
Yeah, it makes it pretty hard if you're working in lockdown for yourself, alone. You don't feel any sort of sense of connection with any particular tribe because you are your tribe of one.
Yes, we weren't built for this.
No.
We were not built for being alone, and I know a lot of us experience that personally, as well as with our clients and other colleagues who are feeling that. There's a lot of pain. A lot of people just can't wait to get back. And of course, what is the severest form of punishment? In a prison.
Solitary confinement.
Solitary
confinement. Mm-hmm.
It's no surprise. Solitary confinement is torture for us. And that is the biggest form of punishment. So we've got these origins, we've got this DNA, we've got this innate sense of need for belonging. I don't think anybody's contesting that. Let's look at how it serves us in the 21st century. So when we get a sense of belonging, I think about a time when you felt like you belonged, like you were part of a group. Put yourself back in that situation. Notice how it feels to remember. Or maybe you're experiencing that at the moment. There's a sense of belonging. Oh, I know that you might even feel that here. I know that I get a sense of belonging when I see people I know and people who come back and the community here. It's like, yeah, there's we belong to this community. So what do you feel when you belong in your experience of belonging? I know we've talked about that a little bit already. But you might notice it as feelings of motivation. If you're part of a team and you're working together in going in the same direction and you're moving together, there's a sense of motivation. We're in it together. It's a powerful feeling. It's also really powerful if you're in it together and you're moving against something else for the sake of creating justice. Super powerful feeling, the combination of those two things, fighting for justice together with others. But the together part is also just really important. I met some folks a few years ago who were a small budding consulting company, and what they were doing is helping organizations and teams go through change. And the first thing they did, all about belonging, they got the matching T-shirts, and they just created just a whole day of we're in it together, we belong. And apparently it made them quite successful. So we're in it together. That's a payoff. Creating alignment when we're working with teams and they feel that they're safe enough to be vulnerable and they connect with one another. They have all that sense of belonging. We've got some dopamine and perhaps some oxytocin, which is a chemical of trust. All of that creates a great platform in which to build collective vision, get aligned, and co-create together. On a larger sense, it can create, in a larger community, we can get a sense of a common good. Like on a society level, we belong to a particular society, so we want to do good for this community. When there's a sense of belonging, when there's a sense of divisiveness, we don't see that so much. At least that's my observation of the world. And of course, the payoff of belonging is feeling positive, happy, and getting a sense of well-being. Anything else you'd want to add to this list, given your own experience of belonging? Or your experience of teams that you've worked with, or clients you've worked with, or teams you've been on, teams you've led? Any other payoffs you've seen about belonging?
I think it leads to creativity and innovation when you have that safety created.
That's Maggie talking. Yes. Yes, the brain, actually your brain feels safer and more of the creativity can open we feel more open. That should be on there too. Yeah, we get a sense of openness and safety. We don't have that when we're in a threat mode or we're afraid, or we have, there's this friend or foe mode that the brain gets into. And if we're in foe mode, not FOMO, foe as an enemy mode, the brain is not as open and not as able to create. So yes, creativity is also the open. So those are the payoffs. Let's look at the cost. We have this need, this innate need to belong, and it's like a driving force. Belong, don't be thrown out, don't do anything wrong, don't ruffle feathers, don't rock the boat because you might be thrown out. Those kind of messages come up. And we might change our behavior because of that. We might not speak up to give feedback, or we might not be totally honest with someone when we should be, because we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to hurt feelings. We don't want to break the sense of connection. There are links, plenty of studies with links to depression. If we don't have belonging, it can lead to, lack of dopamine, lack of these chemicals that keep us alive and thriving, and a lot of links to depression. And here's a big one, I think, very topical these days. We belong. When we belong, we feel like these are my people. I'm on this team. I am not on that team. I'm with these people. I'm not with those people. We are we and they are them. So we've got us and them, us and them. It gets set up so easily. And we fight silos in organizations, and we fight all kinds of differences, including racism and sexism and all kinds of other isms that get between people because of this us and them. And part of the contribution is our need to belong. So I belong and identify here, which means I want to keep my belonging. I don't want to have that broken. And so we keep people out. It's a bit edgy, that one. Anybody want to comment? Steve?
Yeah, I think that's a massive cost, huge. I think it causes a lot of division. I think it leads to people not re-examining their beliefs, and beliefs become very set, very fixed. And I think it blinds people to looking at anything that's outside of that belief system, because it feels like you're being disloyal. And it also can feel like you're being just, if you're not conforming, then, it's against your beliefs, you must be stupid.
Mm.
No one wants to be stupid.
Yeah. So you're pointing to part of belonging might also be adopting certain beliefs. I'm part of this crowd. That means I believe these things.
Yeah.
And it's all contagious. So if everyone believes that way, it's easy to believe that, or at least talk ourselves into believing that, whatever that is. Any other thoughts about the costs of belonging? There are probably many more than what I named on this slide.
Well, I think the Meghan and Harry interview speaks volumes here. You belong to the institution, which is the royal family. There are certain costs with belonging with that, but there's also certain costs with, going to Canada and not being part of the royal family in terms of titles for Archie and security and so on. So it's quite interesting to see the costs of, belonging either way or not belonging.
Yeah, and the pain for some, Harry leaving, and
huge.
Yeah.
Me, very invested in a group that we sort of rely on to get our need for belonging met. And when that group fails to meet our needs in some other respects, perhaps, then it becomes very difficult to leave.
Yes. So we might stay, and Norbert, your sound's not very strong. I don't know if everyone heard you, but if I can paraphrase, we might stay in a place where it's not healthy for us anymore because we need to belong. It's a total rephrase of what you said. I think. Is that what you said? Is that what you meant? Norbert?
Sorry, I was looking for my microphone control instead of listening to you paraphrase.
So you were saying, you're talking about belonging to a group, and you might sacrifice something in yourself in order to stay.
Yeah, actually I was emphasizing or trying to emphasize more the huge cost that you create for yourself when eventually you have to leave a dysfunctional group.
Got it.
If the group is dysfunctional, but nevertheless you invested yourself into it in order to get your belonging need met there.
So yes, so kind of following on to from Roz's comments, I think you can belong to a dysfunctional group, but you have such a sense of belonging that you might stay, and then the cost to leave is really high. Yeah, you can feel that, can't you? Yeah, Silka.
Yeah, I wanted to say what really annoys me about that whole construct, which is real, is that those in power can actually exploit that.
Absolutely.
You know, and to me, this is why I always question everything.
It's so easy to exploit this. A lot of people exploit this. Imagine, what do we do to have people belong to our group? What's the entry fee? How do they belong? How do they need to conform in order to join our group? We'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. Any other thoughts about other costs?
Something came to mind at a more extreme part of the axis. When you look at how we change our behaviors to fit in, it leads to the dissociation from our authentic self, which is proven to lead to illness as well as mental and physical.
Yeah, huge costs there.
It occurs to me that it's such a deep need that if we experience as children or young people that we do not belong in primary groups, that we may carry that assumption through life, that we will not belong in work groups, in other social groups, in neighborhood groups, that we would make that assumption and we would live in that place of assumed non-belonging.
Yes, we can just carry this belief around with us that, I don't belong. And some might always carry a belief of I don't want to belong, even though they really do.
Or an arrogant, I always belong.
Or arrogant, I always belong, yes. I'm presumptuous, yeah. Leah, you have a hand up.
Yeah,
sorry, Lorna, I'll come back.
Something that Claire sort of popped in there, like leadership either fosters a we culture or a culture of separatism and a need to know. And I do think there is that kind of leadership culture that often in organizations we are a we, and therefore you have to be very conscious if you are entering that and if that works. And also the leadership of any organization needs to be really conscious about how they're setting this up.
Absolutely. It's almost like we're playing with fire. I'm exaggerating, of course, but leaders, we need to be conscious about how we do include and create a sense of we, especially around racism and differences. Inclusion is so essential and it's fundamental. And how do we do that? How do leaders create a sense of inclusion? And not just for people with differences, but for everybody. And then, of course, there's layers of team. How do they create a belonging in a department? And so there's not this team versus that team, but we belong to the same organization.
Yeah, and I think there's a symbiotic relationship there between for the benefit of the business and for the benefit of the employee. So there's got to be a really sensitive balance there.
Yes. Yeah, and it's easy to sow divisions, as you were implying too, and that might happen accidentally, but I think, I don't know if some people get joy out of that. there is an approach.
It happens quite quickly though, if you get a bigger business, if you grow from a small business to a bigger business, and then you have more people as middle managers kind of thing, who then have their own egos and who then aren't necessarily following that full culture of the leadership ultimately.
Right. And it might be my department against yours, and somehow we start competing. Donna Leah, you've had your hand up. Your digital
hand up. I'm really interested in this. And adding to what Mary was saying about children, this is really important in schools and in all the different teams that children belong to as they grow up, whether they're on a soccer team or anything like that. I'm a life and an ADHD coach. My clients mostly have ADHD, and some young people, as well as adults newly diagnosed, who struggle with their self-esteem because they've never belonged, and they feel that they're never enough. And you have these issues around dropouts, high school dropouts, kids who leave school because they're not functioning as well because of the emotions that they always have on a playground when they're smaller. And then we have this group of kids who aren't belonging to anyone. So then they join the groups that parents don't want them to belong. Thievery, they become in the prisons, your prisons in the UK, our prisons in Canada, we have high rates of people who left school, dropped out, and they have ADHD, mostly undiagnosed. And so what happens is they are belonging, but to a group that nobody wants your children to belong to.
Right.
Kids who are considered real bad,
Sure.
so to speak.
Gangs take advantage of this all the time. Gangs are a way to belong.
Mm-hmm. Oh, big time. And you have you have leaders, ADHD, people who have ADHD, they often are great leaders, and there's a very fine line that they cross or not when they become a leader of, in North America, we've got Hell's Angels. I have a brother who I always said he would have made a great crook because he thought like them. And he was a police officer who was head of a Secret Service in the end, but he could have been on that opposite side.
Yeah.
And so our family was lucky. So.
Yeah. So we're all carrying
Thank you.
around. Yeah, thanks, Donna Leah. So we're all, who knows what we're all carrying around, our friends, our colleagues, our team members, our people we're in relationship with, our bosses, our direct reports, our clients. We're all carrying around, most of us, something about belonging. Could be a rich conversation to have with others. What is your sense of belonging? So I'd like you to do, here's the introspective part. Just want to create a moment or two for you to think to yourself, what have you done to belong? Like perhaps there was something you gave up at some point, or you sacrificed something, or you limited yourself in some way so that you could belong. Or maybe there was just the way you belonged was find others who were just like you, and maybe it was a time to thrive. Either way, what are some of the things that you've done to belong? And what are the payoffs and costs that you've experienced? You might just notice the feelings that show up when you start thinking about what did I do to belong to that group? No.
Are you asking for us to throw something out there?
Not yet. It
Or
was just a
just-
moment
yeah.
to reflect. I was just giving you a moment to reflect. And we're going to be in a breakout room in just a moment. And you can share this if you're willing. Here's the questions I wrote for the breakout rooms. How does your need to belong impact your feelings and behavior? So given the questions you were just thinking about, you can share those answers. Or if it feels more safe and comfortable, then talk about how do you see the impact of belonging, need for belonging, affecting those around you. That's a choice. I want you to have a choice about how vulnerable you're willing to go. No judgment about that. So pick one of those questions. Gwen's going to pop you into breakout rooms. You'll have about 10 minutes to have a discussion. Please make it about the need for belonging and the impact of that. All clear what you're about to do in a breakout room?
I wonder if I might ask a question. If it's an inappropriate time, please feel free to say so. Are we making the assumption that that we should avoid the costs while
I don't think
accepting
so.
the need? Okay.
I don't think we're avoiding it. I'm just trying to create awareness.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's payoffs and there's costs. And then you can look and go, wow, that was really worth that. That cost me a little bit, but I got that. So apologies if it made it sound like that was a bad thing. Sometimes it might be, sometimes not. Thank you very much for that question. I think it was really important. Please, let's go in without any judgment into these rooms and have a conversation. No judgment about what it cost you and whether you should do something or not. Excellent. Thanks, Mary Beth. Okay, off you go. You, I believe, are going to opt yourself in. It's a 10-minute conversation, and we'll bring you back after 10. welcome back.
Thank you.
Generally, people come back at different rates. So,
No,
how was the conversation so far for you guys?
it was interesting and pretty deep, actually,
Mm.
talking about, how all of this affects us. And someone mentioned the disc and taking the disc and realizing strengths and how these could be used in different quadrants, which was really interesting.
Interesting.
In different contexts.
Thank you. Sorry.
Claire, what was the person that you referred to? What was his name?
George Balint, Balint.
Thank you.
Who wrote about the fault in the self, the fault line.
Great.
And when it's triggered, then the personality really gets fractured, and the person doesn't feel even really, I won't say alive, but feels so empty and disconnected, dissociated.
So sorry, what is it? Could you put that in chat, please? Because I'm looking it up. Is that a book?
It is a book.
Oh, thank you.
A long time ago.
It's great. Loving the sharing of resources. Others, feel free to share resources in the chat box if you have some.
Let me just go look on my shelf and pull it out and get the right title.
Okay. So how were those conversations? What did you get from having a conversation about belonging? I know it was kind of short and there were 4 of you, but I hope it was good.
I think we all felt we belonged.
Oh, nice. Good. Excellent. Good. And what did that afford you when you are in a small group that feels like you belong? Did it allow for more conversation? And I'm guessing, but I don't want to assume too much.
Yeah, I think we did. Some of the others might like to say something about that. Maybe they didn't feel the same.
Yeah.
But we were laughing and we enjoyed it and we connected.
Good. Nice.
I think.
That's great.
Maybe I'm wrong.
That was your experience. You're totally entitled to your experience. Jane, how was it for you?
For me?
Yeah, well, it looked like you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I was just thinking where, like, how one kind of, I hope everybody else thought what I thought. And that is part of belonging, isn't it? That you want to create a commonality of experience. And so you're always, at least I am, always scanning how everybody else is reacting and responding to a particular situation. And I think one of the things that we talked about was the fact that sometimes you want to belong to a specific, when you've got the real desire to belong to a specific group, you'll work harder. But if the payoff isn't there for you, then you'll leave it. And if you're included, you are, but you're not that fussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think this is. Please.
I'm just jumping in just to say, because I just had a bit of an aha moment. When we belong and we feel good about belonging, we're probably working with our value systems. And when your values align with other people's values, you can feel that and you get to see it if you keep going. So you definitely would belong because they're not sort of swimming up the river. We're in it together. I like what Suzanne said.
Yeah, it's like connection points. Those values can be sort of connection points.
I remember a piece of advice that I got for starting a new job, and that was to keep my head down for 6 months and shut up. And just observe the culture, And considering where I was working, it was a very good piece of advice. If the value is inclusion, then there's a sense of oneness in the team or the organization. But it depends on leadership so much.
Yeah, but isn't the danger of all of this the echo chamber and the then we become less discerning of what really should be happening, right? And we become part of a culture that may lead us in the wrong direction ultimately. Like the gangs, for
Yeah, like the gang. So, yeah, sorry, Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of highlight a really interesting insight from Maggie about, and we had a long conversation which will continue, but it was interesting about the difference between, we started talking about Strava and Facebook and that kind of sense of belonging that people get from being part of the club, you know, and getting followers, getting likes and all those things. The dopamine hit of getting that kind of makes you feel really safe and belonging. But then we talked about the difference between that external validation that can drive people in a certain tribe or club, but also how you can counter that cost perhaps with more of a focus on sort of inner validation, you know, connecting to your values more and making that difference more clear, if that makes sense.
Making the difference between external and internal validation. Yeah.
Maggie can say it a lot better than I can.
Anything you want to add, Maggie?
You said it quite well, Steve. I think it was around whether in certain circumstances it's a false sense of belonging and can be quite traumatic if it's misunderstood or if it's understood as belonging and actually it doesn't bring the benefits of belonging.
I think a lot of those social media feels like there could be a lot of false sense of belonging. But, you know, so much of what our experience is based on our interpretation of what's going on.
Exactly.
So maybe that serves us sometimes. Maybe that gets us in hot water other times. I'm just hoping that we can create even more awareness for ourselves. Is when am I fooling myself? When is it real? When, you know, and how do I choose to look at this situation?
We talked a lot about age and the impact that age has on it, because when you're younger, you often have a greater need to belong, so you can misalign yourself to groups or people because you want to fit in. Whereas we were saying, as you get older, you're less bothered about that. And I think it builds on what somebody else said about if you're in a group or your belonging is very consistent with your values and beliefs, then that is true belonging, and there isn't really a cost to that. That's a good way of belonging. But I think when you're younger, you're just desperate to belong and be seen to fit into a group.
And I think a lot of it depends on attachment style. So whether it's secure, insecure, drives a lot. And that throughout life, although attachment style can change as we get older or not, as the case may be, if one doesn't do the developmental work. So.
I'm also aware that as teenagers, our limbic system, our emotional brain develops fully, and our prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until we're about 25. So we have a different balance, and we're much more emotional driven while we're in those stages. So yeah, teenagers are a great place to look for our core emotional functions. They demonstrate them so loudly. And you might think back to your own teenage years with cringing. Like, did I really? Or not?
I think of gratitude that my son is alive and functioning well. And he's now 41, thank God.
Made it through that phase, did he? Yeah. Well, I wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about ways to work with others, just to get you thinking for yourself. I mean, I have a few tips here, but I'm sure you have many of your own. Perhaps you can share in chat box other ways to keep belonging in mind as you work with others, if you're a coach or a leader or even a team member. Of course, we want to create a sense of belonging for the teams that we work in, especially for those who may be different, whether they're a different skin color or they're ADHD or there's some kind of disability or something. You know, how do we be truly inclusive? Inclusive means that person really feels that they belong. Not we pretend that they belong, but they feel it. There's an authenticity in that belonging. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think it's a great.
I see it in my clients all the time. Their sense of shame And when they're feeling this shame because they're not belonging because of whatever as a child, even it just goes right through adulthood. And when they feel the sense of shame so strongly, and there's the RSD, the dysphoria. Oh, you know what it is, I'm sure, Laurie. I can't remember. Rejection, something dysphoria. And a lot that's very real. And what they do is they isolate themselves because they feel they've embarrassed themselves, and they can't face people because of all the interrupting they do and those sorts of things. But the antidote to that shame is actually about connection, and yet it's the flight, they go away, they just hide, and it gets worse, and they ruminate. So it becomes a very interesting conversation with them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to say, Tonali? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Okay. There's some other things I wrote on this slide. In addition to creating a sense of belonging, understand that what will people think is a real concern. I know as a coach, I've often said, don't worry about what other people think, go for it, which is just not fair because it's so deeply ingrained. What will other people think is a real concern, and don't, let's take it seriously. As particularly the coaches and friends and family members as well. Yeah. So people say, well, what will people think? Yeah. Get curious about that. Maybe help them recognize that's an emotional need of the brain, and they might be able to work with it that way. Know that feeling left out is deeply painful. Let's not ignore that people feel deeply pained when they are left out. Saying, oh, get over it is probably not the easiest thing for people to hear if they really feel left out. You can use a sense of belonging to help teams align. It's great. When I was reading Sapiens, love that book.
Yeah.
Our total DNA of Sapiens is to belong and connect and create together and align together. It had me feel so much stronger as a team coach. I know that we've got it in our DNA, and once we align together on a common vision, wow, we can go places because that's built in. So that's something you can leverage, something you can use to your advantage or the team's advantage if you're a team coach or you're a team leader. That's built in. So let's find our way to align and unite. And of course,
sorry.
Please, Claire.
I was just going to add to that, we're built in to collaborate and cooperate. And we wouldn't be where we were if we hadn't been that type of animal, as Steve Hayes says.
Yes, that's right. Sapiens were built to collaborate. We're successful because, yeah.
The need to belong empowers that.
Sorry, Norbert?
The need to belong empowers collaboration.
Yes.
If we didn't have this need, we wouldn't form into collaborating groups in the first place.
That's right. So we can leverage. Yeah, it's like free energy, I think of it. Here's this thing waiting to be tapped, this sense of belonging. We just tap that and have people feel safe and tap in, and all kinds of things can happen. Know that you can motivate and influence others by helping them feel that they belong, giving them a sense of belonging. Hey, you're part of us. Just also know it's a huge way to manipulate people. Not suggesting that's what you want to do, but it is something that people do. And it's happening all the time, and we fall for it all the time. So that's part of the conversation as well. If there's other things you think of, I'm noticing the time. I've just got a few minutes to wrap up. So kind of closing our conversations. But if you have other things, ways that people can work as a coach or team leader or team member on ways to leverage belonging, feel free to put it in the chat box. I'm sure others would appreciate that.
Laurie, I have a different question. For those of us who work for ourselves,
yes,
and we don't have a physical team, and what can we create belonging for ourselves so that we don't need people. We know it's a reaction in the brain, but is there a way that we can adapt to this environment that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, there was that conversation Steve and Maggie were having, I think, about internal validation and connecting with your own values and finding your values. And it's a mindset about belonging. You might just tap into, even in your imagination, who do I belong to? Who's my tribe? Who's my family? And feel them energetically. The brain doesn't really know the difference between this imagination and real. It does a bit, but there's so much we can build inside our minds. If we keep telling ourselves, I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone, that would just keep threatening your sense of belonging. If you keep finding, oh, I'm part of this huge tribe of people and we're all by ourselves. There's so many of us. We're out here and I'm with you, you know. You can change your whole sense of feeling of belonging just by looking there. So, quick question for you to answer to yourself. What's a takeaway? You might just write a note for yourself, for your own sense of belonging, your need of belonging, the reward of belonging, like what you get out of belonging, what it cost you, you know, the payoffs and the costs, just something you want yourself to be aware of moving forward, or something you want to do to create a sense of belonging. Just take a note for yourself so you have a takeaway from this conversation. I always like to have a bit of learning and takeaway. And I'm just going to take another couple of minutes and talk about Rewired to Relate.
Sorry, something went wrong.
What went wrong? Is that somebody talking to me or is that a background?
Alexa.
It's Alexa.
Yeah, that was Alexa. I apologize. I've muted.
Now my Alexa is lit up.
Always, she's listening. Always.
She's always listening.
Gary.
Do they talk to each other? Your Alexis?
No, I tried to give me an Alexa, but it didn't work.
So I want to tell you about Rewired to Relate. This is a program, we've been offering it 3 or 4 times, going on our 4th delivery, I think, starting in May. This is a 6-week program. It's Gwen, who's here as technical host. She and I have built it mostly along with my partner, Frode. We have put everything we can into this program to make it modern learning, and to highlight and finesse the best ways the brain learns. So there are minimal online aspects in terms of structure, and there's lots of community. But the content is about the kind of conversations we have today. You go deep into conversations about belonging and deep into conversations about status and how do these things run us, not just at a quick level, but spending time on this, because these things are running us. And if we don't spend the time, they run us unconsciously. So we have more conversations like today's conversation. You also learn more about your brain and increasing resilience and managing stress, learning how to embrace complexity and uncertainty, and working better with others. That's the ultimate goal of that program, Rewired to Relate. How do you relate well with others, work well with others? It's designed really for anyone. So team members, they can learn to collaborate better. Leaders get some tips for creating great teams. Coaches can learn some tools, but it's really a personal development program for anyone and everyone who lives and works alongside others. 3 different aspects of the program structurally. There's online content, lots of different little pieces that I started talking about a minute ago. Videos, quizzes, interactive elements. Spend a half an hour a week getting through all the content. And then there's the real world applications and real world people to talk to and ways to keep on track in the program. It relies heavily on social learning. And that's what people love most about the program, is the social learning, like the conversations you have today. So that's Rewired to Relate. If you want to find out more, Gwen has put the link in the chat box. You can always go to shuksvensen.com, our website. By the way, we have completely revamped our website recently. There's all kinds of resources there for coaches. There's going to be a whole selection of demo coaching with one particular client. For those of you who want more demo coaching to watch, there's a team demo coaching. There's a paper all kinds of resources. So feel free to check it out in a blog, weekly blogs with lots of neuroscience related topics. There you go. Thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate the turnout today and all of your participation and contributing and talking to each other. Any final words from anyone?
Thank you.
Welcome. So unless there's anything else, there's some thank yous in the chat box and other comments. So unless there's anything else, we'll stop the recording here and say bye and see you next time. Please do stay in touch. Let us know if you have ideas or thoughts for future webinars you'd like to hear or participate in.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Jane, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Bye. Bye.
Happy. Bye, Carol. Good to see you.